For years, everyone thought Verizon had the best network, because they did. But now the best mobile network in the U.S. is T-Mobile. T-Mobile's network has the most advanced 5G, with more towers, and their signal reaches further than ever. So you can text and instant talk and say, "You won't believe where I am."
T-Mobile has the best mobile network in the U.S. based on analysis by Ookla of speed test intelligence data 1H 2025. See T-Mobile.com/network.
Whether you're deciding what gifts to buy or which game to watch, there's one place where it feels good to be right. PrizePicks. Our entire Footballers team has been excited each week to share our PrizePicks lineups, and now the NBA is in full send mode. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code DFS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code DFS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome in. Friday, December 19th here. Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined, as always, by Matthew, soon-to-be West Coast Betz.
Actually, by the time people are listening to this, we will be on the bird, headed west. So early morning flight on Friday, and then, we're back Sunday night. Man, I've had terrible luck with travel, just like delays and stuff like that. You miss your connection, those sort of things. If I miss Sunday Night Football between Lamar and Drake May, I'll be very sad. The nice thing is we could always rewatch it, but it's just not the same as, sweating it live. And I've got a Drake May team in the playoffs to redraft that I really need a good performance from. So it'll be fun. But yeah, man, I'm excited to be out there. I wish you guys were as well, you and Emma. But good weekend of football coming up. Obviously, as we get to this part of the year, the difference in the top tier and the lower tier of teams has never been wider than it is right now. So I'm interested to talk about that on the slate because there's a lot of questions on motivation level and backup quarterback play and all those things. We are slowly but surely getting closer to Week 18, which is just the slate of all slates. And this feels like a mini Week 18, if I'm being honest.
Yes, it does feel like, despite the fact that we don't have a lot of division winners clinched. Do we have any?
I think the Broncos. Have they clinched?
I think they've clinched the playoffs, but I think the Chargers still have a chance. They're at 10-4. I think they could win out. I think the Broncos will win, but it is at the point of the season where usually we'd have a team or two that clinches, and then we start pushing out in week 17 and 18 and sifting through those teams. Instead, we're getting Brady Cook, we're getting Quinn Ewers, we're getting these types of quarterbacks, Gardner Minshew, that are affecting part of the slate. The problem with DraftKings in the pricing right now is that the quarterbacks are still too cheap that are really, really good. So when we talk about Jacoby Brissett, it's yes, I could drop down to a 4K Quinn Ewers, but at $5,300 based on the pricing structure, I'm just going to keep playing Jacoby Brissett. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert to everybody on the planet. Jacoby Brissett is still a play in DFS. So usually we would have a different conversation at this point. But I think the NFL's done a really, really good job of making these divisional games more important down the stretch. These last couple of weeks, especially when we get to Week 18, there's a couple of really, really good ones. But yes, that Patriots-Ravens game, I have on a team in redraft, Drake May, Travion Henderson, and Derrick Henry all in that same game.
What a relaxing Sunday evening that's going to be. No stress at all, just watching football, enjoying it. Oh man, you're going to be sweating every single play. It's going to be great.
And then also, I talked about it, I think, on the Dynasty podcast, but Tyler Warren has been my tight end the entire year. And it's the Monday night game. I'm thinking about sitting him down.
Who in favor of who?
All right, in full PPR right now, I have Juwan Johnson.
Okay, no Devon Bailey. I like that.
I think it's a floor play. And then Colby Parkinson is who I have in as of this recording. Things could change if I just get a little too scared.
Yeah, well, everybody listening to this will know in hindsight after the game what happened. So I hope you made the right choice, is all I'll say.
So the problem with fantasy football is I am very against, you've known me for years, I'm very against shoulda, woulda, coulda thinking. I never tell people if I just would have done this after the fact. I don't do that. Now, before the fact, I stress out a ton. But after the fact, I don't place the blame on anything. I never come up with any more shoulda, woulda, couldas. I just take the blame upon myself. Am I too hard on myself?
No, Kyle. No, of course not. You're a realist. And I respect that about you.
Man, I kind of go back and forth because I consider myself a dreamer. I consider myself a person that, thinks big, thinks outside the box. And yet I can be hard on myself in a game where I'm trying to predict what other human beings are doing in a game where I have no control.
Are you a dreamer on Quinn Ewers this week?
No, not at all.
Kyle, you got to be more open-minded. Come on, it's the Bengals. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, we will talk about it because at 4K.
That's what I'm saying, man.
I got done writing up that game and I realized at the very end of it, I go, you know what? At 4K, it could work. If any week, this could be the week that works. So we'll break down that. We'll break down some of the other games of this week 16 slate, give you our slate breakers, and we will prop it like it's hot. If you want all of our picks, go to dfspass.com right now. I'm talking run to your desktop computer. Make sure you double click your Internet Explorer, whatever thing you use from the 90s, your Netscape, your Navigator, whatever else you're using back in the day. And you go to dfspass.com, use the promo code DFSPOD. You can save a little bit and you can play with us all throughout the NFL playoffs. We've got some really, really fun slates coming up. Let's jump in.
Straight cash, homie.
In cash this week, do you really need to get cute at all at quarterback?
Man, they did not move Jacoby at all. In fact, they brought him down a little bit. At this point, I don't know what to say about Jacoby Brissett. He's just delivered every week. He's been a top 12 weekly scorer when you think about season-long leagues. Every single start over the last month and a half. Now you get a, I think, up and pace type profile matchup here with the Dome, taking on the Falcons, who, like early in the year, they were kind of a run funnel. Like quarterbacks would struggle against them, pass games would struggle. You would just run all over them. But in recent weeks, you can kind of do whatever you want to the Falcons. I know, Kyle, you can speak to that. So, yeah, I think Jacoby is going to chuck here. My only, and I don't even want to say concern because it's not really a concern, but a lot of his production in the last 5-6 weeks have been in very obvious negative game scripts in the second half where they're down 2 or 3 scores. Like, think about the Niners game, the Rams game, even the Texans last week. Like, they've just been so far behind, they've had to let him throw 40, 45 times a game that maybe in this spot, I mean, the spread's only 2.5. If it's closer than you think and we don't get those huge negative game scripts, is he throwing 45 times or is he only throwing 35 times? Which, again, for cash is probably fine, but just talking through like upside and kind of ceiling case and just range of outcomes here on Jacoby, I just don't know that you're going to get those crazy 45 attempt games. That said, the matchup is there. He might get Marv back, which we'll talk about how that affects Michael Wilson, but helps him, I think. Obviously, Trey McBride playing at an extremely high level. And they don't have running backs to lean on this. They have to go with the pass game here. So, yeah, look, I listed in my article on the site, if you wanted to play Gardner Minshew, I think you could. It's not as much about him, although without Rashee Rice, if he sits, that makes me incredibly nervous. I will just say, like, there was a lineup I was looking at with Minshew in there that allows you to fit Amon-Ra, Gibbs, and Bijan. And for a second, I was like, ooh, this is kind of fun. So I'm at least, like, on the outside looking in, considering it, but I think the truth is, like, we're going to play Jacoby.
I would assume in head-to-heads, double-ups, it's going to be 60+%.
I think at least.
Just to give you one more bit of data for Jacoby, because I've been poring over it because I have Jacoby in my home leagues. Over the last 6 weeks, they are throwing the ball inside the red zone 80% of the time. That is a ridiculously high rate, and they are lapping the field in neutral pass rate. It's at 76% with the next closest team 66%. So the volume is what we've kind of gone to. I do agree with Betz. Like, I think there's a point in this game where you might not get 45 pass attempts, but the Falcons defense has been at a point where they've been very exploitable. So Jacoby Brissett across the board is probably going to be our dude. There are some interesting plays on FanDuel. Bo Nix is an interesting play at home if you look at price adjusted stuff. So all of that is in the best plays article, which will be out on Saturday. At running back, the way that I'm seeing builds form this week, it is pick one of these stud 8K running backs. And I would say Achan's kind of fallen out of the cash conversation with Quinn Ewers just bringing some more systemic risk. So it's Bijan at 8.7, Gibbs at 8.5. Do you have a lean on those two, or is it just a yes?
Yes. I mean, these guys should both be awesome here. Like I said, there is a couple lineups that you can look at. You got to punt at a few spots, and it makes you a little uncomfortable. That you can fit both. I think if I absolutely had to only have one here, it would probably be Gibbs for me, I think, just for the $200 savings. But both guys should be awesome. When you think about the Cardinals defense, talked about that on Tuesday, their games are hitting the over pretty much every week because they can't stop anybody right now. They're allowing 36.2 points per game, obviously dead last. And we just saw Jordan in this matchup, who people learned some names last week, go for over 100 yards rushing in this matchup. So Bijan should go wild here. At the same time, you think about Gibbs and kind of how it's gone for him. And you think about what happened last week, played over 80% of the snaps, kind of fell on his face from a fantasy performance standpoint against a really good Rams run defense. Now the market is telling us you should expect way better performance from the Lions at home with a 30-point implied team total. And we kind of know like how this goes with Dan Campbell and his guys off a loss back home in the Dome, all the things we talked about all season with Gibbs. So honestly, you can't go wrong with these two. If I had to pick one just because of the $200 difference, I think it's Gibbs, but man, flip a coin. These guys are both, I think, awesome plays on the slate.
Do you think you will prioritize having one of these studs hang down at some of these other 5K running backs and then saying, I want at least one stud wide receiver? Because part of me wants to say I just want Bijan and Gibbs, but then it makes it really hard for me to fit in Amon-Ra on this team.
For sure. I definitely want a line on this slate. Either both sites. Jameson Williams is kind of a tricky click on DraftKings for cash. On FanDuel, he's way underpriced. So I want a lion on both sides in my lineup. I just feel really good they're going to come out here and put up points. You get the Steelers on short rest after Monday night. So that's kind of how I'm approaching it. I will say the wide receiver position, it's kind of like the same conversation every week where there's like a couple strong options at the top. The mid-tier from like the 6K range up is kind of overpriced for projection. So they don't really get clicked a lot. And then you kind of go down to the bottom and anything below 4K is a wasteland at this point. Like we were playing Mitch Tinsley last week, for goodness sakes, who ran like half the routes, not even.
Whoa. I played Jack Besh.
How'd he do?
He scored like 1.5 points more.
So like the cheapest option that I even feel comfortable about at wide receiver is like maybe A.D. Mitchell, or if you want to play Xavier Worthy if Rashee Rice is out, like I think that's fine. But like you're not excited about any of those cheap guys. So I see the argument for like balanced wide receiver builds, getting some of these 5K guys. But for me, I definitely want one of Gibbs or Amon-Ra on DraftKings.
Yeah. I had a build where I played Bijan, Gibbs, one of these cheap running backs. It was a 3 running back build, but I ended up having to kind of go in this middle tier range at wide receiver. So we'll talk about those in a second, and some guys potentially you could punt with if you need to. But at running back in the 5K range, it's Michael Carter of the Cardinals at 5.4. Aaron Jones feels like the easiest click at 5.2 against the Giants, who've been basically the worst rush defense in the league. Kenneth Gainwell probably is more of a tournament play, but 5.1, his projections are going to look really good. And in case you haven't been noticing, he leads the Steelers in receptions this year. Kenneth Gainwell. Aaron Rodgers.
I was going to say, just the way Aaron Rodgers likes it.
Yeah. And then the other name I just have to mention is Audric Estime of the Saints at 5K. We know that Devin Neal's ruled out. Anyway, any prep, like I feel like all of these guys are fine at 5K. They're cash conversation dudes, and yet I could see all of them like topping out at like 14 points.
I don't think you consider the Saints guys in cash. For me, just like, what's the workload? I have major questions about how good those guys even are. The offensive line's kind of banged up. And for $200 more, you can just get Aaron Jones in the matchup against the Giants, who literally are dead last in whatever you want. Rushing success rate, explosive rush rate, yards per carry to running backs, like literally dead last in everything. I think if you're going down in that range, for me, I'm not getting cute with Gainwell, who I do think is interesting as part of that game stack. But for cash, I mean, it could be Warren at the goal line. They run Connor Hayward, tush push, right? So you could lose goal line opportunities. I think you just keep it simple and just say, look, Aaron Jones against the Giants makes a lot of sense if you're going to play somebody in that range.
Yeah, he's averaged 15 opportunities per game over the last 6 weeks. And you mentioned the matchup, 31st in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to running backs. He's the easiest click for me. He's in my lineup as of this recording. At wide receiver, you mentioned Amon-Ra at 8.4. Jameson is very interesting for tournaments. But we start going down. I like Nico Collins at 7.5. His projection is going to look very strong as a 2-touchdown favorite against the Raiders, who, I don't know if you last saw, did you see their implied point total?
11.5.
11.5.
And I honestly would probably take the under.
I think that weren't the Raiders the team on Tuesday's podcast? I was like, hey, you cannot back this team.
I mean, welcome back, Gino. Goodness gracious.
I want to say that it was like at 13.5 or 14. Now it's at 11.5.
Moving the lines.
You think some of the people were running to their books, and that was the specific bet that they were looking at? It was just like, man, we got to look at this implied total.
I mean, you guys know what Kyle does on this show.
What a niche bet. That, like, the books all of a sudden like, whoa, everyone's really interested in the Raiders all of a sudden. What happened? Nothing has happened this year. So Nico Collins, 7.5. Michael Wilson is the number one fantasy wide receiver over the last 5 weeks. Not like just in total points, in fantasy points per game. So at 6.9, if we don't have Marvin Harrison Jr., I think he is an easy click. What do you think if Marv does play?
Man, this is tricky because it's everything right now is such a small sample size, right? The games without Marv, he's been incredible. In the game with Marv, he was good, not great, especially in DFS for a salary, was not good. So I think it's one of those things that in cash, he probably won't hit optimals if you put Marv in the lineup at this tag, which is, I mean, it's not cheap. Like almost 7K is a legit price point, and he's earned it. But I think that would push him out of cash conversation for me. I think he would be a really good and interesting tournament play if that becomes the case. Just because we talked about with Jacoby, the matchup is certainly there. So obviously, if no Marv, he's in there. I'm not thinking twice about that. If Marv plays, I probably will not have him, is how I'm thinking.
All right, so Marv was out there at Cardinals practice today. I can see a very fuzzy photo of him on a field. That tells me nothing other than he showed up to work.
Was he dressed?
I mean, he's wearing the stuff. He's wearing number 18.
Okay.
He's got the helmet on and everything.
All right, good. I know you're a big fan of that tweet. When guys aren't dressed at practice.
Dude, I cannot tell you how much of our jobs at this point of the year is, did somebody else show up to work? That's it. That's literally what we're trying to do, is trying to figure out from an HR perspective, did this other guy who's probably in his 20s, in his first real job in his career, is he showing up to work?
I will say we have some interesting reports here out of Arizona. You know who's leading the drills?
Dortch?
He's on IR, Kyle. Don't be mean. Michael Wilson, first through the drills at wide receiver, then Marv. So learn your spot, Marv, on the depth chart.
Hey, there's so much you could read. Okay, so like even today we're getting news about T. Higgins not participating in practice. Update, T. Higgins did join the practice late with a helmet.
Who knows? Check back Friday.
Yes. There's a lot up in the air. So dropping down a bit further, DK Metcalf has never felt like a cash play. But at 5,400, DraftKings is begging us to play him against the Lions, and the matchup could not be better. We'll talk about it later, but DK Metcalf is set up against a team that uses a ton of man coverage. They give up a ton of fantasy points to outside wide receivers. He's seen a 26% target share of the last 6 weeks. That's a lot higher than the 20% he was seeing where they were just, I don't know, giving him 4 or 5 targets a game. So any interest in DK at 5,400?
Yeah, they are almost begging us to play him, aren't they? It feels shaky because when you think about Metcalf, I mean, we saw this on Monday night, right? 3 targets in that game. It's like, when I'm thinking about DraftKings scoring, like I want guys that have a chance to catch 6, 7, passes and get there in PPR. I think Metcalf's most likely outcome here to hit for us in DFS is going to be a big play, a touchdown. The game environment suggests that certainly could happen, and obviously the matchup is incredible. We talked about this a lot over the last 4 or 5 weeks with Detroit really struggling defensively with some of the injuries in the secondary. They're giving up a ton of explosive plays. My only concern on that, and we'll talk about that in the game environment, is that when you think about explosive pass plays, that doesn't really get associated with this version of Aaron Rodgers where everything is so quick, check it down, all those things. But maybe that's more of a tournament take. Maybe for cash at that price, it's fine. And you just roll them out there at a good tag and a good matchup where the Lions should pour it on and put up points and force them to throw the football. So I don't mind it. It's just, it makes me uneasy when a guy could literally see like 4 targets. And you're like, why are they not funneling volume to him? It's just not how the offense goes. So I think he's fine. I don't think he's a must by any means.
All right, dropping down further, A.D. Mitchell at 4,500. He has a 27% target share of the last month. That'll work for the game that we play.
Yep.
There's obviously ceiling concerns. There's floor concerns, let's be honest, with Brady Cook throwing the ball, but he works nicely at his price point. And then Trey Harris of the Chargers, I know he was on the injury report, but 3,300. If Huge doesn't play, Quentin Johnston, I think he's the preferred punt, but we also might not have a punt play this week.
Correct. Yeah, I agree with that. If Huge is out, you can look his way. If Quentin Johnston is in, I don't think you can really go there. There's just no good plays in the cheap range, quite frankly.
Yeah. At tight end, I think we're going to be paying down. And if Drake London plays, it throws a wrench into Kyle Pitts at 5K. Last week, we saw Drake London was at practice, says he wants to go, but still a lot up in the air about if that's going to happen. Harold Fannin at 4,500 is interesting against the Bills. Juwan Johnson, 4K against the Jets, is probably the easiest, safest click. I don't know about the actual ceiling, but he has 4 receptions or more in 5 straight games. So Juwan Johnson can get you 9 to 10 points, and I think you'd be happy at that price point.
For sure, yeah. Those are the guys I had on my list as well. The matchup for Harold Fannin is not great. The Bills are number 1 this season against tight ends when you think about schedule-adjusted points in fantasy. That said, I mean, the guy is just getting so much volume, and in PPR, that'll work. So he'd be an interesting fade candidate for me in tournaments. I also think Juwan Johnson, as we kind of discussed, is he's fine. That works. But like last week, it was kind of the same conversation with Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews. And we had all these kind of okay plays, but nothing was amazing in this range. And a couple of those guys failed. It feels very similar to that this week, where there's a lot of really good pivots down in the cheap range that I would advise against playing into chalk in this range, unless you're going to game stack or anything like that around it. Otherwise, I'm probably looking to pivot here for tournaments. What are your thoughts on Travis Kelce? He's 4,700.
He still plays.
He plays football. The Titans are terrible. 27th in schedule adjusted points to tight ends over the last 5 weeks. If Rashee Rice is out, is that a direct, they were running routes in the same area of the field, the easy stuff for Minshew? Could these be the last couple of games we see of Kelce in the NFL? Does he want to go out on no production? I don't know. I could see them force feeding him the rock a little bit.
I mean, 4,700, I can't really argue with that. If Rice is out, I'm in. I'm in on where he's at. I'm sure he'll show up in our top 5 tight ends just based on his salary and his projection. But
we're not going to talk about that game. But I've kind of talked myself in and out of Minshew. I think the floor is low on this Chiefs team because, as we talked about on Tuesday, they don't know how to play meaningless games in December because they're always in the playoffs. So I have concerns. But if Rashee Rice is out, the Titans have morphed into a huge pass funnel this season, and you can stack Gardner Minshew with Xavier Worthy and Travis Kelce, and all of those players are $4,700 or cheaper. So to me, it's a really interesting, cheap tournament stack, easy double stack, you know where the ball is going to go, and then you could just spend up on Bijan and Gibbs and whoever you want, basically. So I'm interested in tournaments. It does give me a little concern in cash, is how I'd put it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with the cheap stack in a small field tournament. I worry about the overall ceiling outcome for those dudes because they have the lowest implied total of the year, obviously, but it's 20.5. So when I just look at other teams on this slate who could go for 30 points, it's tough to build around that team, but people are paying down at quarterback all across the board. So if those 3 dudes end up giving you 45 plus points, 50 points, that's a really great start and a really cheap start, and you can, like you said, pay up at the other position. So I get it. I totally understand the pricing part. At defense, I'm just going to work you from the top to the bottom. It's going to be the Texans at 4K, then it's the Bills at 3.5. The Titans, if you're like, hey, I think Gardner Minshew is booty, at 2.5, and then it's the Jets. If you just want to punt and play the Jets at 2.1, it's fine, but that's kind of the range from the very, very top to the very bottom. I
kind of like the Jets. And it's really not about the Jets. It's more about $2,100.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure you don't like the Jets. I'm pretty sure this team is one of the worst in the league.
Correct.
They're very bad at stopping the run recently.
Correct on all fronts, but they're $2,100. And as we talked about, I want to play Amon-Ra. I want to play Bijan. I want to play Gibbs. Like, how do you do that? You play $2,100 defense. Similar to last week, however, where we had like the Eagles against Kenny Pickett. You had the Seahawks against Phillip Rivers. Like, there were some really high ceiling options in the player pool at pricing wise. You know, people were paying down for like the Saints in cash last week. I think the ceiling on the Texans this week is massive against that Raiders team. So I don't know if I'm going to pay $4K for a defense in cash, but in tournaments, I definitely want exposure there.
What I heard you say is that your love for Bijan and Gibbs is so much that it looks like you also love the Jets.
That's exactly how I would say it.
Okay. Hey, for DFS, we do weird things when it comes to pricing. So let's take a break and we'll talk about some games.
At Boar's we make game day entertaining elevated and effortless. Whether you order catering platters ahead from your local deli or create your own spread with premium deli meats and cheeses, you're sure to impress your guests with the very best. Fan favorites like Oven Gold Turkey, paired with our classic Vermont cheddar, are sure to score big. Game-winning flavor in every bite. Boar's Head, committed to craft since 1905.
The college football playoff is everything.
Toughness, growth, sacrifices.
Laser focus.
This is where I fit deep.
Everything you got, all damn day.
The attention to detail is like none other.
Be physical, be violent. We are the winners.
Tulane takes on Ole Miss, followed by James Madison in Oregon.
It's time to bring it.
First round coverage of the college football playoff presented by Allstate. Saturday at 3:30 Eastern on TNT and HBO Max. Are you ready?
Let's go!
Where is the drop? Kyle, here it is.
Stack Attack.
The hard part is that in our doc, it says Stack Attack, and I have a picture of Mike Glennon of lore of this podcast. But then in my stream deck, I also have a picture of Mike Glennon with a picture of the Toys R Us giraffe. That is not the same drop as the one I just pressed, though.
That is confusing.
I know. I probably need to switch that up. All right, the first game we're going to talk about here is the Steelers at the Lions. The Lions are 7-point home favorites. The over-under is 52.5. And for most of the year, you can kind of lean into Lions stacks at home at Ford Field and know that it's going to do really well. Since Dan Campbell took over as the play caller in Week 10, the Lions are averaging 31.5 points per game and 6.8 yards per play. That's number one in the NFL. I feel bad for John Morton, offensive coordinator, because it's like someone stepped in and said, like, hey, I mean, I like you. I'm going to keep you around. He's still like, in meetings and stuff. But it would be like if, I don't know, Andy came in. It's like, hey, Kyle, I'm going to host the DFS pod now. I'd be like, well, you're stepping in on my game. And one, that would never happen, right?
No,
I mean,
not a chance.
But it's like, what is he doing now? Anyway, Dan Campbell's done a really good job for fantasy for us, making Jameson Williams come alive. They've been targeting Jahmyr Gibbs a ton. And it's also coincided when Sam Laporta got hurt. So the main thing that I've been talking about, we talked about last week and I'll talk about again, this is an 11 personnel team, and Jameson Williams has been so much better when there are 3 wide receivers on the field. Usually it's the opposite. If a wide receiver is in there's just 2 on the field, they can earn more targets. It's actually been way better for JMO, and you've seen how good he's been over the last 6 weeks. So I first just wanted to say that we believe in the Lions. We would say that 30 points is very much on the table at home, and they're probably going to, send a statement this week.
For sure, yeah. Easy to talk yourself into the Lions. Obviously, the field is on it as well, so you're not going to sneak this by anybody. And these situations, I think, are always interesting in DFS because when you think about the game theory aspect of DFS and getting unique and getting different and how do you find low roster players, like there are none on the Lions. Like the ball goes to 3 players basically because Dave Montgomery's kind of gotten phased out. Like he'll get his, 8, 9-ish touches, but really like if he doesn't fall in the end zone, he's been pretty irrelevant. So the ball goes to Gibbs, Amon-Ra, and JMO. So you know who to stack if you're going to play Jared Goff. But the problem is on this slate, all 3 of those guys on both sites are going to be mega, mega popular. So again, doesn't mean they're bad plays. It's just those are the guys in this team and that's how you play them. And, they will be popular. So if you are going to play Lions, which again, we advise doing because it's a really good spot, team total is there, they're back home, all those things. Just make sure the rest of your lineup correlates with that, meaning in tournaments, if you're playing Gibbs and Amon-Ra, you do have to find low roster pieces around it, get contrarian with your stacks elsewhere, etc. But it's hard not to love this spot. Like I said, the Steelers coming off short rest, now they go on the road. They've also been really vulnerable. The Steelers have to passes in the middle of the field. I mean, you think about, Jared Goff off play action and hitting J-Mo on those crossers and stuff like that, and Amon-Ra obviously dominates the middle of the field. It's easy to see a path for success here for the Lions. So I love it. I'm probably going to play less lineups than I normally do because I'll be traveling and stuff, but in the couple that I have, I'm going to build around Detroit.
Yeah, it's really hard looking at this game and trying to get really cute. Like Gibbs is going to end up being 25-30% in large field. Amon-Ra, 25%. J-Mo is going to get played a ton. DK is the obvious bring back, or Kenneth Gainwell. So those are all 5 of those pieces are going to have a ton of roster percentage. And then it's kind of simple. I'm going to play a Jared Goff double stack, bring it back with DK or Gainwell. Does that give you any worry then? Or like you said, the advice earlier is just, I'm going to be playing this. I just know that I'm going to have to get different in my, in these other games.
Do you really think people are going to click Kenneth Gainwell?
Dude, I'm seeing in 10%, 11% on some sites. I'm telling you, people want to play him because he's been really, really good. Dude, he's been an RB1. Our site is showing 14.6%.
That's more than I would like.
Dude, have you been searching for Kenneth Gainwell game logs? He's been an RB1 in 4 of his last 5 games.
He's been good. Eagles legend, Kenneth Gainwell. Right.
That's why the running game has kind of not been so good this year.
Because they're basically just using Kenny G as an extension of the run game in the pass game?
No, that's why the Eagles stink at running the ball this year.
Yeah, they took away Kenneth Gainwell and, it all went downhill. Yeah, that is the concern is do I want to play Metcalf into chalk? I get it. He's fine. Do I want to play Kenneth Gainwell into chalk? Probably not. So for me, I'm probably lower on the Steelers side of this than the Lions side. Though I will say it is a late window game. This is a 4:25 kickoff. So kind of like I talked about last week with Rams and Detroit, if you play some contrarian stuff early, you can play all the chalk you want in the late window if your early stuff hits. So that's kind of why I'm interested in Gardner Minshew stacks. Is I can play cheap Gardner Minshew if KC hits without Rice and you know where the ball is going to Worthy and Kelsey. Play all the guys in this game, and things will probably happen. So just be mindful of that. Yeah, that's the concern here is the roster percentage.
Hey, I like where your head's at, because what you're saying is, dude, at 4,500, this is all I need. I'm not asking for too much here. I think the way to get different in this game is to probably just not play Steelers. There's a chance this team just falls flat. And the worst part about the Steelers is they are dead last in offensive plays per game. With Aaron Rodgers, he's averaging less than 200 passing yards per game. And then this other stat, this is from NFL Next Gen, 42% of their drives end in 3 and outs. Only the Raiders are worse. So there's a lot of times where you look up at Steelers games where were the plays? That's why DK has those game logs of he had 4 targets and what happened. So
yeah, the other thing too with the Steelers, they could still hold up their end of the bargain and help the Lions get there, and this game goes over the total and all those things. But because they're doing the weird stuff with Aaron Rodgers where he's got all his friends here and they run 4 tight ends and 9 wide receivers and, whatever else, he could still throw 2 or 3 touchdowns and it could go to MBS and Adam Thielen. And then it's well, that didn't matter for DFS, So that's why I think Metcalf is fadeable and I think Kenneth Gainwell is fadeable.
I agree. One more Kenny G stat. He's been targeted on 45% of his routes inside the red zone.
Stop trying to get me to play Kenneth Gainwell, Kyle.
That is the second highest rate in the entire NFL of any player. Running back, wide receiver, tight end. I mean, he's no Colby Parkinson, who's number 1, but he's used in a really weird way. And so he makes sense at 5,100. So if you just wanted to play Gibbs, part of me was can I play Gibbs in the Detroit defense and get out of here?
Nobody's going to play Lions defense. So in a tournament,
I'm telling you right now, I am.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah, I think Lions team total is how I'd handle this, but I think this team handles business.
I agree. Lions over 29.5.
All right, next game is the Chargers at the Cowboys, and I just need to confess, that my heart is tied around this game and Justin Herbert for many, many reasons. So I need you to talk me out of it if I'm being an idiot. The Cowboys are basically mathematically eliminated, and yet this game I think still matters. The combined points we've seen all year from Cowboys games is what matters. The only thing that I need to throw a wrench in this game, it's at 49.5. The Cowboys are 2.5 point favorites, is that the Chargers in the last 5 weeks ranked 27th in pass rate over expectation. Do you think that is we're trying to make sure that Justin Herbert survives this season because he's been hit more than any other quarterback? And the running game has worked in certain spurts. Like you saw Vidal and Hampton kind of been a 1-2 punch the last 2 weeks. Like I think it can work, but we're just not seeing the crazy passing volume we saw at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, it's the offensive line too. Like Herbert had a broken hand and they're down to like their fourth string tackle and backups everywhere on the line. Like nobody is getting pressured and hit more this year than Justin Herbert since these injuries have piled up. So how do you protect him? You run the football. That's the recipe, right? And we've seen that recently with the Chargers, where they were the PROE kings, in the first 5 or 6 weeks, and since then it's really fallen off. And you can't blame them. It's good coaching, when you're thinking about like the systemic situation for the team. I will say though, the matchup just keeps coming back to Herbert. It's like, man, JJ McCarthy, went nuts in this matchup. Like, I know Herbert hasn't been amazing for fantasy. This is a spot again, looking at like, okay, we go from the Eagles defense and their pass rush to a really good Chiefs defense on the road in Arrowhead to now like the Cowboys, and the Cowboys have given it up to everybody in the pass game. So I am interested in Justin Herbert for tournaments. I will say if Quinnen Williams is out, he's in concussion protocol, that gives me more confidence that they will be able to mitigate some of the pass rush concerns from Dallas. I could see him totally wrecking this game if he's in there, but if he's out, I have even more confidence in Herbert.
I think this sets up well for the Chargers if Williams is out. I do think that we don't want to discredit the Cowboys because they're out of playoff contention, so you kind of think like, oh, they're unmotivated. This team has a 26-point implied total. I definitely think that you can lean into Dak as a volume-based play, and that's what you're hoping for, is like he throws for 300, they need to come back. So if you wanted to do a Dak double stack, I think my favorite way to get different in this game is Amarian Hampton, who last week he was outsnapped by a ton, and yet the touches were still in his favor. He saw a touch on 67% of his snaps. This is a bad rush defense as well. So we're not just looking at this as like big plays in the passing game. I do think that he's an interesting play here if you wanted to look at it. Now, this game isn't going to have nearly as much roster percentage as the other one. So I think this is one, if you think it goes off, you're leaning in the Dallas passing game and you're picking a piece on the Chargers side.
Yeah, I don't mind Hampton at all. 5,800 on DraftKings, nobody's going to play him. So if you're looking for, again, just like a one-off in this game, if you're looking for a contrarian option to be able to play all the Lions stuff and get your chalk late, this is a way to do it. So I don't mind that at all. Like I said, especially if Quinnen is out, he's been huge in their run defense. So yeah, that's definitely an interesting look. I like that.
All right, between CD and Pickens, do you have a preference?
I like CD. I mean, I'm always a CD guy, you know me. But
I love CD.
I just think about the Chargers and how they've defended perimeter wide receivers. They've been lights out. Over the middle of the field, they've been a little bit more vulnerable. It's not like they've been bad, but they're just more like league average out of the slot. So obviously that would favor CD. If we're kind of nitpicking here, I think both guys still have a ceiling that's worth chasing at low roster percentage. But if I'm going to pick one, I would prefer CD.
Slant boy George Pickens. He's our new Michael Thomas because it hasn't worked the last 2 weeks. But when it works, he's the best in the league. I did some deep dives and found that the Chargers have allowed the 4th most total receiving yards to slant routes in the NFL. It's been a fun little behind-the-scenes project of like, which teams are really bad against which routes? And the Chargers aren't great against slants, but I do think I prefer CD as well. Pickens is a nice little contrarian play at 7,400 if you're thinking about that. But I don't know, man. Since CD's been back, it's like I don't really look Turd Ferguson's way. I think Javante's fine at his price point. Not a great play.
I kind of like Javante.
To me, you like Javante. Tell me more.
I mean, you think about the Chargers, they've been a run funnel most of the season. That's the path of least resistance against this Chargers team. And it's sort of conflicting styles, right? Like the Cowboys are one of the highest pass rate teams in the league. They lean on Dak. And so in theory, you would think, okay, that's not necessarily great. But when Javonte has been healthy, and that is also a minor concern, we just got to make sure we're monitoring their news. He was banged up in Sunday Night Football. You saw him leave for like a quarter and come back with the neck and shoulder. I think he'll play. I think he'll be fine. But if he's in there and they do go run heavy, they can have success. So when it's been him, like when he's been the guy, I mean, you will see a Malik Davis for like 4 or 5 touches, like nothing crazy. Like he's getting almost everything when he's healthy and when he's the guy. So 6,400, he could get lost in the shuffle this week. So I am also interested in him in this game.
Over the last 10 weeks, how many times has he hit 20 DK points?
Not a lot.
Once.
Yeah. Was it on Thanksgiving?
It was against Washington.
Not on Thanksgiving.
I believe. Yeah, not on Thanksgiving. I have ceiling concerns sometimes with him. You basically need 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to be a sucker and just say Chargers money line.
Chargers money line. When has that ever failed? There's something about this game, right? Like you look at their records and you're like, okay, one team is not mathematically, but basically eliminated from the playoffs. And one team is definitely headed to the playoffs. Shouldn't that team run away with the game? It feels fishy. I'm going to take the Cowboys at home.
Them boys.
They're our boys, Kyle. Back against the wall. Come on, Shotty's got the guys ready to go.
I do so I've never been a Shotty guy. Okay. I knew his dad, Marty, we knew each other, big Marty guy, Marty Ball.
Not like you and Bobby Slow, though. You guys are boys.
That guy's, he's employed with Miami. He's the senior passing coordinator. So
that's pretty official.
That means he's probably going to be looking for a job soon. But Shotty has done a good job, at least not been cringy. It seems like the team likes him. I like that part of the Cowboys.
Have you watched the in-season Hard Knocks?
No.
It's the NFC, so it follows, obviously, the Cowboys, a part of it. I'm a fan. I like what he's doing.
Okay. Yeah, I love that nuanced approach. Betz is an Eagles fan. He can say how much he loves his Eagles. He can root for the Cowboys in Survivor. And then he can go, you know what? I like this part of them. There's a part of being a laundry bro where people just say, because I'm an Eagles fan, I must hate everything about the Cowboys.
I mean, don't get me wrong. When they play the Eagles on that week,
yeah,
I despise them. And any other week when they're out of playoff contention, I love that team, man. Fun to watch, fun to root for. Finish the season strong, Cowboys. You almost made the playoffs. Good job.
So when CeeDee Lamb does something really cool against the Eagles, is there a little part of you like, man, CeeDee Lamb's cool?
There is, because I have him everywhere.
I love CeeDee.
So in week 1, when he had all those drops, I was like, yes, but also, come on, man.
All right, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Traditions are a game changer. Traditions have the power to turn a simple moment into a memory. Bring a whole city together. And they're even what inspires us at Tostitos to make our masa the traditional way. Starting with whole corn kernels, no artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. We craft our chips for whatever your tradition is. Tostitos, tradition matters. Official chip and dip sponsor of the NFL.
The college football playoff is everything. Toughness, growth, sacrifices.
Laser focus.
This is where I fit deep.
Everything you got, all damn day.
The attention to detail is like none other.
Be physical, be violent. We are the hunters.
Tulane takes on Ole Miss, followed by James Madison in Oregon.
It's time to bring it.
First round coverage of the college football playoff presented by Allstate. Saturday at 3:30 Eastern on TNT and HBO Max. Are you ready?
Let's go!
A game that we are going to preview here that is near and dear to my heart. My Atlanta Falcons travel to Glendale, Arizona, my former home, to play the Cardinals. So 2 bird teams that are quite depressing, but for fantasy purposes, they're kind of fun. We need to realize that as much as they are a joke to me, you have Bijan, who is basically one of the best backs in the league and looks like a video game character half the time. You have Trey McBride, who is breaking fantasy football. You have Jacoby Brissett, who is also breaking fantasy football. You have Michael Wilson, who is him, who is Jerry Rice. And then you have Kirk O'Chains, who just does his thing whenever it's prime time now.
Dude, Kirk's the man. Look at him. They wrote him off. He didn't write back. You saw him on Thursday Night Football, Kyle. On Thursday nights, against the Bucs, he is him. Any other time of the day, Any other team?
It's got to be against the Bucks. It's a very niche thing that he's got at this point in his career, but yeah, it's fun. I think the big question in this game is the wide receivers and who's playing Drake London, Marvin Harrison Jr., and how does that affect Michael Wilson and Kyle Pitts? So it does change things. You can have lots of confidence in Bijan, obviously. You can have lots of confidence in Trey McBride, who is breaking everything. And then beyond that, there are a ton of players that if I had a podcast where I talked about betting, I would say that they will not be in the league in 2 years.
Who is that? Who are these guys?
David Sills, Amari DiMarcado, Michael Carter, all of these guys that have significant playing time. Maybe even Jacoby Brissett. Now, he'll probably be a backup somewhere, but
Kirk
he will
Cousins.
not be starting. Kirk Cousins. I mean, like, let's be honest. This is how it's going to work. So,
dude, is there a world? I know this is real NFL talk, so people might not care, but is there a world where Kirk plays decent enough in these last couple of games that he earns like a stopgap starting job? Because we talked about this in the Dynasty show. This year's quarterback class is not good. Could Kirk be starting for an NFL team in 2026?
Yes, and here's the part that you're not going to want to hear.
Is he starting for the Falcons?
That's the part. Raheem Morris came out and said all options are on the table. Now, when Mike McDaniel said all options are on the table, he meant Quinn Ewers is on the table. This could work. This could be the guy. So, yeah, I don't know, man. It's weird with this organization. Our owner, the owner of the Cardinals, Bidwell, is also another not great owner. But the reason we like this game is these teams play fast. The Falcons rank 6th in combined plays per game when Kirko is behind center. I mean, this dude, talk about up-tempo guy. It's Kirk. And it really does kind of hinge on Drake London, who can elevate this entire game. The splits for Kyle Pitts are very, very clear. If London's in, it's not as good for Pitts. If he's out, Pitts kind of becomes a must-play in cash at 5K. Like, would you say, if you knew London was out, you're locking Pitts in?
I think so.
A sentence you knew you were going to say at one point in your life.
I mean, what did he have? 11 for 164, something like that, and 3. So I can't wait for 3 for 30 and no touchdown because you know it's coming this week.
No matter how you break down the Cardinals' pass defense, it's bad. I started to look at the numbers between zone, man coverage, single high, two high, which, by the way, Kirk Cousins did a really nice press conference kind of explaining how progressions work for quarterbacks and single high and double safety looks. Like, it was good stuff.
Football guy.
The Cardinals are bad. The Cardinals are real bad.
They're
just
terrible.
like, so you can convince me of anything. I don't really like using Cousins as an option. And so it kind of comes down to, if you want to play Bijan and Pitts and then just say Jacoby and either Michael Wilson or Jacoby and Trey McBride, that's fine. I do think you will start to run in roster percentage with Wilson, Bijan, and Pitts if London's out, because those three would be popular.
I agree. And this is also a late window game. So if you're thinking about playing a Jacoby stack and also playing the Lions and playing DK Metcalf, like eventually all of that is in the late window and all of that is super, super chalky on this slate. So again, I'm not saying that those are bad plays. Just you have to think about that when you're setting your lineups. But I think this game's going over. These defenses are checked out. Like, I like the over. So I'm definitely interested in this game. I am kind of interested in Kirk. I know you said no. And maybe I'll hate myself in a couple of days.
I thought you were the Gardner Minshew guy.
Well, I also like Gardner Minshew.
You just play them both at the same time?
I mean, we're talking about like week 18 caliber quarterbacks. Kirk's kind of on that list, you know, so I'm a little excited. I think you could play him with Bijan. Bijan's plenty involved in the pass game. If London is in, obviously it gives you a high ceiling option to stack with Kirk that I think people will have injury concerns, right? They're like, I don't know, he's off the injury. Can I play him? I agree. Like, there's a possibility he's not himself, but also if you're telling me we might get Drake London with minimal roster percentage in this matchup as leverage off Kyle Pitts, I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to do that and not watch the game and hope for the best because Drake London could go absolutely bonkers here. And if he does and people don't want to play him because they're concerned about the injury, I'm at least interested. Again, more of a tournament option, obviously, but that's why I'm interested in Kirk because I think you could stack him up pretty easily. And then you get direct leverage off of Jacoby Brissett. So maybe I'm just a sicko, but that's what I'm thinking.
The problem is the Falcons do have a semblance of a running game between Bijan and Algier, where I just look at the Cardinals like I'm not even paying attention to the running backs. Like, yes, Michael Carter could be the dude. So I think my favorite way to stack this up is Brissett. You're paying up for McBride at a lower roster percentage than what he's used to. It's also leverage off of Pitts, so that is interesting. If London doesn't play, that's interesting that way. And then, yeah, you're not really getting cute with Darnell Mooney and David Sills and the rest of the boys. It's kind of the way I do it. I just think Kirk goes to 0 on the ground. I'll pay $500 more for Brissett.
Yeah, that's
not biased at all.
Yeah, not biased at all. It's an option. Again, this is a late window game, Kyle. If you need I need to pivot, what do? You know who you go to. You go to Kirk.
And Jason shared very clearly of how this game will play out, which it's very, very clear. Because both teams could lose this game by the Cardinals winning. If the Cardinals win, it makes their draft pick worse. If the Falcons lose, then it makes their draft pick better for the Rams, which is worse for the Cardinals, which is how this game usually works.
Dude, I can't wait.
I would take Cardinals +3.
Cardinals +3.
Or the over's fine too.
I like that. I'll take Cardinals +3.
Yeah, and then Bijan anytime 5 touchdowns. That's the other one.
What is his anytime touchdown? We should look that up. I'm sure it's ridiculous, but
Bijan is the man. He's so fun to root for. All right, really quickly, we have to mention the Bengals and the Dolphins. This was a game early in the week. We had our entire production team, our entire stats and research team was all about this game. And by that, I mean me and you. We were talking about this game. It's like, wait, let's preview it. The Quinn Ewers news did not help. It did not help at all. The Bengals are 4.5-point home favorites against the Dolphins. The line moved from 50.5 to 47.5. So this is a game that we will briefly mention. There's a cheap stack if you wanted to go there. I wrote it up in the Pace of Play article if you want like a full write-up on how this could work. But this game has moved down a ton for me.
Yeah. The line movement went from 50.5 to 47.5. The Bengals were 2.5-point favorites. Now they're 4.5-point favorites. So the market is saying Tua is worth 2 points of the spread and, a couple points here on the total as far as their team total. So I am concerned. But at the same time, I'm into the cheap sicko quarterbacks, Kyle. I think the most likely outcome here is the Dolphins are not successful offensively. But in DFS, when he is 4K, and you can stack him with Achane if you want, who will not get played on the slate because of Bijan and Gibbs and the systemic concerns on the offense. If this was Tua, Achane would be mega chalk. So I still think he's a good play, especially if you want to pivot in tournaments. And then Waller, everybody coming out of last week was like, okay, we get the Bengals next. We're playing Waller. If you don't have him, you're picking him up in redraft and you're playing him. And now because it's Quinn Ewers, is it Ewers or Ewers?
Ewers.
What are you saying? Is it Ewers or Ewers?
Correct.
Because of Quinn, nobody wants to play Waller. And don't get me wrong, I get the concerns. I think the floor is low. But if you're telling me you can get a 4K quarterback and a 3,500 tight end who will not be played in the matchup, I'm interested. Yeah, we're getting nasty. I'm interested. And look, if he is at 4K and he gives you 15 points, 17 points, and the top end fails relative to expectation, that could work. So that's my approach on this slate. There are some cheap sicko quarterbacks that I'm interested in at low roster percentage with cheap stacking partners. We talked about the tight ends, right? Everybody's going to play Juwan Johnson or Harold Fannin against the Bills, which is a terrible matchup. Kelsey, any of these guys could do terribly. Any of these guys could be great. This is the spot, just like last week, where everybody got so zoomed in on one or two guys. Any of these players are the same archetype of 2 for 20 and no touchdown, or 5 for 50 and 2 touchdowns. So I'm willing to play Waller at low roster percentage, even though I am obviously concerned on the floor. But in tournaments, we don't really care about the floor.
Dude, you've one, let your hair down. 2, you sound like a guy who's about to be kid-free for 3 days. It's just like, yeah, sure, Gardner Minshew, why not? Oh, 4K, Kirk Cousins, why not?
The guys you needed in the fantasy playoffs, we all said, Kyle.
Yeah, I've considered myself always somebody who's been very rational, very, very just level-headed. But you were talking a little wild here. I have concerns about the offense with a 7th-round quarterback who I think is not great.
Oh, of course. I'm concerned too, but so is the field. I'm seeing 3% on.
But here's the thing. If Tua was in there, I'd have the same concerns. This team is bad, and they don't get off a ton of plays. They're 31st in seconds per play. They're just already an inefficient offense outside of Achane.
Are you interested in Achane as a one-off?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think Chase Brown's a great play, too, at his price point. I think he's going to end up being under 10%. He's totally fine. I just have concerns overall about this game. Like, it went down in the total for a reason because I was just unloading, my kids' college funds because of this game.
It's going to be awkward when the Dolphins win this game. It's going to be awkward, Kyle, when the Dolphins win this game. That's all I'm saying. I'm just kidding. I will say, on the Bengals side, it's so tricky. Like, I want to play Burrow, and I don't know if this is relevant or not, or like if we should read into this. Did you watch the game last week against the Ravens?
Yes.
They were handing off a lot on 1st and 10, and that's not the Bengals that we know, especially with Joe Burrow healthy. So, I don't know. I'm a little shook on the Bengals. Maybe that's being too short-sighted, but I don't really want to play into Jamar Chase roster percentage here and Tinsley and Yoshi and whatever else. Like, I don't know. What do you think?
I think I'm just staying away from this game.
All right. That's fine. You stay away from this game, Kyle. I'm going to play a 4K quarterback and a 3,500 tight end, and I'll be laughing all the way to the top of the leaderboard. And by that, I mean I'll see you at the bottom.
I did write up different stacking options. If you want to look them up, it's fine. You could do it. All right, moving on.
Slate Breaker of the Week.
So I don't know if this is about hedging, but with Slate Breakers, I've kind of ended up going in this direction now where I want to give you, here's a elite player who is actually like, I'm going to be playing a lot, or at least over the field. And Nico Collins is that player at 7,500. We didn't even preview that game, but I think a lot of people will funnel towards the running back, and it could just be a complete split. It could be Nick Chubb. It could be Jawar Jordan. I don't know. But I think Nico Collins is that dude. He had 2 touchdowns this past week, and I think he's a really, really great play. That's my elite slate breaker play.
Do you have a cheap one?
I do have a cheap one.
Okay.
Who is showing up under 5% in roster percentage. And we mentioned him earlier, and I intrigued you. It's Marion Hampton at 5,800. Okay. This Dallas defense could be without Quinnen Williams, and they are 31st in explosive rush rate allowed, 28th in scheduled adjusted fantasy points allowed to running backs. I think that at his price point, nobody's going to click him because they think it's a split backfield. But in terms of touches and who they trust more in the meaningful touches, I think it's Hampton. So he's definitely one of those plays this week that I'll be mixing in tournaments.
I like it. Kyle, there's a saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Oh no. But you
guys just want
right.
to play James Cook again? Because at 7,700, he's not in the cash conversation. It's either Bijan or Gibbs or Aaron Jones. And the Bills are going to run the crap out of the football, man. They're taking on the Browns. They're 10.5-point favorites. There's wind concerns. There's some weather concerns. They're still trying to catch the Patriots for the number 1 seed in the division. They're going to run the football. And the Browns defense has been very good on the season in general against the run. They have fallen off a ton over the last 2 or 3 weeks. We saw Tony Pollard randomly pop up for a huge game. We saw DeAndre Swift last week for a huge game. James Cook, once more. Let's do it.
Dude, it's so wild because, I was looking at the Browns numbers earlier. On the season, number 1 in rush success rate allowed, so they're the best. Number 1 in percentage of runs stuffed. But if you look over the last month, they've been the exact opposite.
That's
so
it's
interesting. It's an interesting thing. Go right back to it, James Cook. We are now at week 16. I will go back through the archives. I'm assuming that we've mentioned him 8 times.
At least. Dude, he's such a fun player. I love James Cook.
Maybe he'll sponsor this segment. James himself. He's got paid.
I mean, dude.
Jimbo?
Just send him a DM on Twitter. I'm sure he'll answer.
Hey, Georgia boy, let's make it happen.
Prop it like it's hot.
If you want all of our props, you can get them in the DFS Pass. We have an article on the website that we update, and then in Discord, we notify you as we take them. My first one I'm going to give is an obscure one that you got to notify people on Discord. It is Isaiah Williams.
Who?
Isaiah Williams, the Jets wide receiver.
That's Jets legend to you, Kyle.
That's right. Isaiah Williams is basically their wide receiver 3 behind Adonai Mitchell, behind Mechie. And last week he went 6 for 53. 4 of his targets were on the final drive in the fourth quarter that have kind of boosted this line. But I will be taking the under on his 29.5 receiving yards. He's 3rd in the target pecking order. You're basically asking this guy he has to catch a bomb from Brady Cook, and yet they're playing against the Saints, who've been one of the better pass defenses recently. So Isaiah Williams, under 29.5.
Yeah, Saints really good. They've been top 10 in both EPA per dropback and dropback success rate over the last 5 or 6 weeks. So Saints have quietly played very good defense recently. So I like that call. I'm going to go with the Saturday play. Remember, there's 2 games on Saturday evening this week. I'm going to go Caleb Williams, under 214.5 pass yards. This is less about Caleb and more about the overall situation with the Browns, or the Bears. They are down Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, Cole Kmet is questionable, and their best pass-catching running back, DeAndre Swift, is also questionable. So I think we're going to see a 2 tight end set bully ball approach against the Packers, who have struggled recently against the run a little bit. Meanwhile, in this game, the same matchup a couple weeks ago, the Bears had a 65% rush success rate in this matchup. They had to throw a little bit more because they got behind. I actually think they're going to win this game, and I think they're going to feed the running backs in this spot. So I will take under 214.5 on Caleb for his passing yardage on Saturday night.
Yeah, the stat that you and I were looking at, so when we gave this prop out, Betz and I kind of go back and forth. We talk about this. The stat I gave was only 29% of Chicago's total offensive plays have resulted in a completed pass. It's just like you look up at the game and you're like, what happened? Like, what happened with all of the opportunities? I like this play a lot. I do think it's going to be a heavy dose of the running game. Can I give a bonus?
Oh, it means the holiday season, Kyle. Come on.
Yeah. I feel like if you're out there, you need some Christmas cash. Jacoby Brissett, you ready?
He never fails.
Under.
No.
20. Yeah, bud. Under 20.5 receiving yards. Did I just bud you?
Receiving yards? Kyle.
I'm sorry. Dude, he's going to crush this one. No, his rushing yards under 20.5. It's weird if you look at like the way that he's played in games. He is a mobile quarterback, but he's hit this line in only once out of his last 5, and he barely hit it at 21. You basically are looking at the way that the Cardinals could win this game. You might get some kneel downs at the end, but Jacoby is getting there from pure pass attempts and not overall rushing volume. So under 20.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, I actually like this a lot. And like we talked about at the top of the show, when we talked about the cash situation, if he's not dropping back 48 times, if it's only 36 times, that's obviously fewer opportunities to scramble too. So I really like this play a lot.
Ooh, thank you. I need some confidence with Jacoby Brissett before I start him in my home league. Betz, you are about to get on a plane, so sign us off.
Yeah, hopefully everybody has an amazing weekend enjoying 2 Saturday games and then a great Sunday slate and then Monday Night Football. Phillip Rivers back on our TV. Going to be a great weekend of football. Hopefully you guys enjoy. Good luck in props. Good luck in DFS. We'll catch you on Tuesday. Recap it all.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com.
Traditions are a funny thing. They're why we tailgate in the pouring rain, wear full body paint, and refuse to wash that lucky jersey. And just like in football, tradition is what inspires us at Tostitos to make our masa the traditional way, starting with whole corn kernels. No artificial flavors, colors, or preservatives. Crafted for that perfect crunch. Tostitos. Tradition matters. Official chip and dip sponsor of the NFL.
The college football playoff is everything. Toughness, growth, sacrifices.
Laser focus. This is where I think everything you got all damn day.
The attention to detail is like none other.
Be physical. Keep playing. We are the winners.
Tulane takes on Ole Miss, followed by James Madison in Oregon.
It's time to bring it.
First round coverage of the college football playoff presented by Allstate. Saturday at 3:30 Eastern on TNT and HBO Max. Are you ready?
Let's go!